We have here a 2001 Volkswagen Jetta 1.9 liter diesel with a manual transmission, and the customer called pricing an alternator. And with a manual transmission, this has a high amperage alternator of 120 amps. That makes it a very expensive item if you get a good one. And so you don't want to put an alternator on it unless you absolutely have to. So this video is about the checks I would make to make sure it needs an alternator and the three common problems that these cars have that make it look like it needs an alternator when it doesn't. So to start with, I want to show you customer symptoms here. The only symptom that I'm getting right now is the battery light's on. He was driving home last night and some lights started dimming, some functions of different things stopped working, and eventually the car wouldn't run. He was able to get it home though, and he charged the battery, and now he was able to drive it here just fine. It's our park brake off, but obviously the only symptom is the battery warning light is on. So the first thing we want to check, number one, do we have charging voltage or do we not? This is just 12.6, and he did charge the battery right before he drove here. So this is just battery voltage. The alternator is contributing nothing. So as we follow this back, we want to check that this area right here is not burned up. And also putting your finger on it, you need to check that it's not hot. If it's hot, there's some resistance there. You could poke the wire. I'm not going to do it on this one, but you can poke the wire right there and check voltage drop across this area. And if there is a voltage drop across this area right here, then you need to replace this. If this is melted down, you might need to replace this fuse box. So the most common area that fails here is this, and this cable is available on my website if you want to buy one. Buy it from the dealer is an expensive item, and from the parts store it doesn't really fit right. But this is the most common item, and this fuse box burns up also. So don't replace the alternator if you have a bad cable here. So we check there, we have 12.6, no contribution from the alternator whatsoever. So then we go down to the alternator, we touch right here, and we have 12.6. So there is no voltage drop on the cable. The cable is connected and working good, but you need to make sure that that is the case, because if the cable had a high resistance spot in it, you would have a voltage drop there. That would turn on your battery warning light, give you charging system problems. Okay, the second thing you want to check, if you want to make sure you're not putting an expensive alternator on it that it doesn't need, is the operation of the one-way clutched pulley. Now, the one-way clutch pulley is designed to spin the alternator one way, but it doesn't allow the mass of the alternator to force the belt to spin the other way, because that would rattle the tensioner. So the inside of the alternator with the belt on should spin one way but not the other. So the way you check for that is with these fins inside the alternator here, these air-cooled fins, and they should turn one way but not the other. Now I'm turning it. I don't know how well this is videoing, but it moves relatively easy that direction. So that is definitely a pulley that is not holding. And then the other way, it moves super easy. I don't know if you can see that, but I can flick it and make it like keep moving. It's probably about as good a video as I'm going to be able to get of that. But that's the problem with this car. This car does not need the alternator, and so a pulley alone will fix it. The pulley can be changed in the car usually, and so this is going to save this customer a bunch of money by putting a pulley on it rather than an alternator and a pulley. Now the third thing that you need to check is if the pulley's good and there is no resistance in the cable and this isn't getting hot and burning up the fuse box. The back here is a regulator, and that regulator can be changed by itself. Sometimes you can get them, sometimes you can't. Don't call me and ask me where to get them, because if you can't get them, you can't get them. But a lot of times I can get them, and when we do that, and it fixes it, you can save the customer a bunch of money. Now, how do you know whether that's the problem or whether it's the actual alternator itself? You have to pull the alternator off and take it apart. But if you save the customer $300 on the alternator they didn't need, then it's definitely worth it to try. I'm going to change this pulley. It takes a special tool, so if you're a do-it-yourselfer, you might not be able to do this yourself, but it does take a special tool, and I'm not going to video the change process, but I will show you that it's fixed when we're done. And I did want to show that charging voltage after we were done is at a good 14.3. We'll take it on a quick road test. Okay, I did just finish the road test on this, and everything's good. No more battery warning light. If you learned anything from this video, give me a like and subscribe. If you'd like to financially support the continued production of these videos, go to my website at www.kansascitytdi.com and look for the donate icon.